just kind of a response video to Matt, but it's not really, just a providing the counter argument. I mean, he's in full phantasmagorical mode, and so there's no real point in going piece by piece. I mean, the whole matter has innate consciousness bullshit is going nowhere. He keeps trying to contrive meaning and purpose beyond what the facts indicate, because he doesn't like the facts, and so we'll just make up a truth. So let's go through some of this stuff. We've been over it before, but like I said, it's just somebody's got to make the counter argument. Somebody's got to. Doesn't hurt to keep emphasizing it. We sort of know where we came from. We're invented by crude forces that basically focus on the structure of a DNA molecule, its reproduction, its consumption and reproduction, its taking over of environments, and that's the programming of the machines that we all are. So, I mean, we acquired our consciousness, whatever, 1 million years ago, 1 billion years ago, it doesn't really matter. And it just is evolved to become more and more sophisticated, more and more complex. You might argue that other organisms have sentience that is equal to ours in terms of their capacity to feel. We just make how you push those buttons, those sensation buttons, much more complicated because of our psychology. So we can push them in very complex ways, but the basic pushing of the button is the same in the end. The mixing of emotion and physical sensation, it's still an experience for as long as you're experiencing it, for when you're experiencing it. But the whole nature of consciousness, we can understand its development. We understand why it exists. I mean, Matt wants a blueprint of exactly how the brain produces it. Like, somehow we don't even have an exact blueprint of how electricity passing through a wire creates magnetism. So his expectations are a little bit high. And we don't need to know the nuances of this mechanical device. We just need to know that when it's running, we have consciousness. When you break it, when you stop it from running, when you turn the key off, okay, there's no more consciousness in there. It's not an innate property of the mass itself. It's a property of it running. Okay, it's like a car engine. When it's not on, it's a different thing than when it's on. The onness is apparent, and the same is true for us. But it's not a bizarre manifestation. It's still the physics that make the engine run. It's not magic. The parts have to be installed and have to be configured just right for the damn thing to work. And the same is true for our brains. And we could start picking it apart. We could start removing it piece by piece until we find out what pieces are critical to this idea of consciousness. I mean, we certainly don't have to have high intelligence to be conscious. So anyway, but the point is that this capacity to feel was just another development of the many developments over 4 billion years of complexification through natural selection, through the evolution of a DNA molecule, through its acquiring of a new tool set. And that's where we acquired it from. That's where it's derived from. The lineage has all kinds of scurvy little creatures in it. None of them looking human, none of them talking about cosmic physics. We know the source. The source wasn't intended to create some sort of enlightened creature that would contemplate its existence. The source was to create organisms that could adapt to unique circumstances, that could learn through their experience, and in turn function more effectively in their environment in that DNA process of consumption and reproduction. All right, so let's go through the simple components of the brain. Our innate drives and desires, the need part, the part that keeps us moving, the part that makes us move. It's innately built into us. Okay, we have this capacity to be deprivated, this capacity to want, to desire, to need, to have something happen to make us satisfied. We need to push those buttons, and usually we have to push them in some physical sensation. Why? We have to, if we're hungry, we have to put food in us to satisfy, to push the right buttons to make us satisfied. And that's the innate programming. And then on top of that, we have this conditioned programming, and that's all it is programming, where our sensibilities, our personal sensibilities, are developed, where we become attached, where we acquire preferences and prejudices, likes, dislikes, attractions and aversions, and so that's just another evolutionary feature. We're living on a complex layer of the biosphere. We created complex social families, or whatever you want to call them, tribes, whatever. And part of success of that configuration of an organism was this ability to acquire these norms, these memes of the society or the tribe. And so anyway, that's another layer, is this conditioning. And then the final layer of our intelligence is this logic machine, this reasoning machine. And other organisms possess it, not to our extent, but they possess it. Their brain is able to add 2 and 2 and come up with a 4 kind of notion. They can learn from experience, and it's not all emotional. They can learn to manipulate the environment to make it do what they want it to do through reasoning. Obviously, we've taken it to a level that no other animal has, but our brain isn't. The intention of the process is to logically model the world and run scenarios in our head and see if we can find some way to make something bad not happen to us and to make something good happen to us. So we can manipulate this imagined model and practice life, essentially. It's almost like our dreaming. It's like other mammals dream, and dreaming it's very functional because it gives you life experience, and thinking is just in a way dreaming, but under a much more disciplined environment. It's not allowed to get as crazy and chaotic. So anyway, and so that's our reasoning capacity, and we can take ideas and manipulate them in our head without having to. They have to be verified by our emotions in terms of good logic, bad logic, truth and false, but we don't have to be emotional in the construction of that model. We can be deliberate and logical and disciplined in the construction of it. So we can have ideas and principles that establish a new orientation. They can't undo our conditioning, but they can give us a priority or a way of acting or behaving that is disciplined by a better notion than how we feel. We don't have to be completely emotionally reactive and in turn allow that to control our behavior. We can think before we behave, and we can have ideas and notions and principles that are more important than what we feel, that allow us to do better than an emotional reaction. So I don't know, I guess I'm probably running out of time. So anyway, it's just we don't need to create a fantasy. I mean, if the truth is a little bit unpleasant, well, so what? I mean, we have to really deal with it. We have to learn human psychology and learn how to overcome it. And we're not going to do that if people keep trying to make it mean something. I mean, the psychology is as stupid or eloquent as we make it. And we see what makes it now. We see the cultures that are creating human beings, and those cultures are driven by bullshit. But it's all a head game. I mean, it's just all what has been successful, and what has been successful is based on what reproduces and what nonsense is inbred into people's heads by parents. And the whole psychology of the human race can be anything. We can control some of that. We should at least try to influence it in positive ways instead of just allowing it to be what it is. I mean, let's call it what it is, illegitimate by its very nature, and say that if we're not going to deliberately construct human beings, then why should we expect human society to make any sense? I mean, we've really got to put some effort into creating human beings that have a psychology that makes them capable of being principled and disciplined. Well, I have a little bit more time, so I might as well get to this point that the world looks the way it looks by happenstance, by this circumstance. It could have gone a lot of different ways, and the mindset and the memes, the ideas that are popular could be very different. The world could be mostly like you, or mostly like me, or mostly like him or her. And I'm just saying that we should take some control over that and recognize that some of this diversity that exists is just stupid. People with idiotic notions in their head, praying to UFOs. I mean, we're doomed if we can't do a little better than that. I mean, we really have to do better than that. Human beings have to be held to a higher standard than just be whatever you're born into. I mean, we have to hold people to higher standards.